guess I should add myself to the stream if I'm going to have one. How's everybody doing? Did we have a good stream last night, y'all think? Did y'all enjoy it? Thought it was pretty good. I thought it was definitely something worth doing. Glad that I was able to be a part of it, and you know, it's just one of those things that reminds you of the blessings in life is seeing your kids grow up, get older, um, mature in their faith, work through, um, just work through the ideas that are in their head and that they are confronted with each and every day. And so, you know, it was something I was interested in seeing how it was going to go, and it went very well. I think it went very well, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It is not just his favorite part of the Bible that he's really talked about. The one that's most interesting to him, but it's one that's big. That's big for me as well. So it's just nice to see it, and nice to see him be able to articulate it so well and uh, understand it so well. So suspicious login attempt. Let's see. Review it now. Got it. All right. I'm trying to sign in. Okay. It's allowing me to sign in. How's everybody doing? How's y'all doing? Where's my comments section? Veritex, guess the vanity of being first is mine. Woe to you. Woe to you. It already doesn't matter that that you were first. We've all already forgotten about it. It is here, saved forever and ever for people to look at. But eventually one day, the YouTube servers will close forever, and just your comment too will be lost to time. And while my streams, I mean, I guess we could say that while my streams will eventually disappear and go in uh, vanish, the word will not. The word will not. So there's comfort in that, right? Ecclesiastes 6 was a really good chapter that we were able to review. I mean, again, they're all pretty good. Some of them are harder to understand. A lot of them go over my head, especially us going through Proverbs. But it's nice to see that that there are very important concepts that are put in there and easy to grasp. You know what I mean? And I felt like it was one of the better streams that we had. One of my better reviews. And then obviously my son coming on and talking about Joseph. That was pretty special. So thank you guys for being a part of that, and listening to what he had to say and being part of his first audience live streaming. It's not going to be a common occurrence on here, not until he's much older. It would be great if eventually this show gets to a point where, and my son gets to a point where he co-hosts with me and we've got different things going on, but that's way down the line. And who knows what God has in store, or for me, for him, for you guys, and this show. We're still right now, we're still in the Old Testament, and we're going to take it just like we're taking this show one chapter, one verse at a time, one book of the Bible at a time. So how's everybody doing? My name's Stuart Davis, Flawed Man of God, the host of your channel. I'm a humble parishioner at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Bible, talk about Christianity, talk about a wide variety of different topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspective on them, one that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life, 42 years, non-denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. What I'm just doing is trying to be in the Word daily, trying to do it better each and every day. Sometimes I'll get it right. Other times I'll get it wrong. But no matter what, if you're catching this show, if you are listening to my voice, you can count on getting my honest takes on whatever it is that we're discussing. So if you are somebody new to Christianity, or you are thinking about becoming a Christian, you're right on that edge, you want to believe, but something's holding you back. Self-doubt, worry about putting your trust in something that may not be as tangible as you really understand it to be. Something that society tells you is stupid to believe in. That only morons and racists and stuck-up people are Christians. That the Bible was a nice set of stories, and Jesus was an okay guy, but not to be taken too seriously. There's a lot of peer pressure out there trying to convince you why you shouldn't be a Christian. But I'm here to tell you, this show and other medias out there are trying to tell you why it's the greatest decision you can make in your life. Because not only are you making decision to follow Christ, but you're leading yourself towards a path of salvation. And once you're on that path, who knows who else you can help along the way? Who knows what other lives will be impacted by this one decision? But right now, we're just worried about you and getting you squared away. And I want you to know that I'm praying for you. This chat is praying for you. The people listening to the show are praying for you. All of Christendom should be praying for you and rooting for you. The heavenly host is rooting for you. We want to see you succeed. We want to see you get that salvation. We want to meet you in heaven. High five, even though I don't know you, never met you. Every soul saved is a victory and is worth celebrating. Because Christ got on that cross because he thought, well, let me back up. Christ got on that cross because you were valuable to him. You were worth enduring that. And while we didn't earn it, and while we're not good enough to expect it, he did it anyway. That wasn't just for me. That wasn't just for priests. It's for you too. So take that invitation for what it is and understand that you might feel alone. You're not alone. And if that's all you needed was some motivation and encouragement, great. I'm glad we got that out of the way. But I'd say I hope you stick around or come back and hang out with us. Maybe get an idea of what it's like. Hang around a bunch of other faithful Christians discussing our faith, discussing scripture. If you are already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics and discussions, welcome as well. You'll find we run this very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. It's all about small group. Start coming around, doing our project right now. We're going through the Bible one book at a time, one chapter at a time, one verse, well, several verses. But we're just reading through it and reacting to it and seeing how we're and discussing how it's impacting us and how it makes us feel, what we're seeing. And so whether you are new to Christianity or you've been one forever and you're smarter than I am about in your understanding, or what, somewhere in between, get in the chat. Want to hear from you. We're a small group, obviously. We just got Veritax in the chat right now. But we are a small group. And anything you put in that comment box, I will read it and respond to it. You're part of the show. Your opinion your opinion matters. And you can help the show be better by your input. So go ahead and tell me, what do you agree with or disagree with? Where do you think I'm right? Where do you think I'm wrong? What unique insight, perspective, or experience do you have that maybe we haven't considered yet? Maybe you just want to add on to something somebody else said. Share your opinion. Ask questions. I can't promise to have the answers for you, but I can tell you that we'll at least talk about them. Maybe we can point you in the right direction. One of the fine folks in the chat might have an answer for you. And with that said, woohoo! All right, getting into the show. I caught the first episode and a half of the Black Hawk Down Battle of Mogadishu documentary. It is heavy, at least for me. I've told you guys, my mentor in my Black Hawk unit was there in one of those helicopters. I read Mike Durant's book before I deployed to Iraq. My drill sergeant in basic training, one of them, he was in the 10th Mountain doing on the QRF force, going in to help rescue the Rangers. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to me. And, just watching some of it and some of the experiences, them sharing it and seeing the video footage, a lot of it I hadn't seen before, is it's put me in a weird mood. It's put me in a weird mood because it's all those conflicting feelings that you have when you go to war and you're trying to reconcile Christianity with violence, with that state of mind, with what we did, and looking back on it, whether what we did was right. Should we have been there? It's a lot to consider. And I understand why it bothers people who have been there as much as it does. Because there's a lot of feelings on your conscience that are hard to settle. And some folks may have their minds made up on it. And that's great. But I also I tend to waffle on my opinions about it. And as I've gotten older, I'm at the place kind of where I understand that we did good things when we were there. We weren't perfect, but at the same time, our leaders let us down because they put us in a place where we were supposed to be, we're supposed to be the U.S. military, which is go in, break stuff, kill people, liberate, and then you're done. And yet what we did was we sat there, and we sat there, and we sat there with no plan, no idea what we were going to do to get out. And it just, how long until you figure out the job's done? And you go back to that scene with mission accomplished written on the carrier. And you're like, okay, we're still here. And we were still there after I left for several years. And then the way that we got out of Afghanistan was embarrassing and disrespectful to those of us who fought there. And yeah, so it's good. The documentary is good, at least so far. It is aggravating because you're hearing from, they are interviewing some of the Somalians that were there, and it's, to one degree I get it, because we're the outsiders, we're coming in, we're bringing food, aid, all this other stuff to you because you're in the middle of a civil war, and the Civil War was pretty new at that point. The Civil War is still going on, by the way. They're talking about all the stuff. Oh, the Americans did this, Americans did that. We didn't start your Civil War. We certainly didn't end it. Us leaving had no impact whatsoever on reconciliation. When Aidid finally died, it had no impact whatsoever on the state of Somalia. It is still an absolute dumpster fire. And they are so mad at the Americans. And a guy saying, "Oh, I was, because these kids were schoolboys, and I was in 40, in 40 battles or whatever. Been in 40 battles." A Somali militiaman, talking in the documentary. I'm like, yeah, schoolboys showed up, and yeah, you got 19 of them, 2 Blackhawks, and how many did it cost you? But some of the differences, and some of the difference in culture is, life matters to us, even though we can sometimes treat it cheaply, and we're no strangers to violent action, obviously. But the point is to fight and stop all the senseless bloodshed. You know, that's why we do want to see a resolution in Ukraine. I'm not going to get on the president's case for doing what he can. And I don't know what's going on with the thing, and I'm not going to pretend to have any understanding of it. But the point that he's saying that, they got to stop killing each other over there is one that I agree with, because you don't want it to turn into Somalia or Ireland in the Troubles or any other place that he just can't stop being violent. But at the same time, we can't solve everybody's problems. And I think that one of the things that the Old Testament especially highlights is the fact that, we can have commandments, directives from God, stuff that we ways we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to treat other people, how we're supposed to get together as a community. And yet, there are many of us who will reject that, ignore it, or pretend that they care. What you should do, what I should do, is take those commandments to heart, because they do come from the Creator. And if you have faith, it does have a lot of weight. It does carry a lot of weight. Faith is more than belief. We talk about that on this show. Even Satan believes. Faith is buy-in, that you believe in what God is telling you, believe in what God is commanding you, and you want to be a part of it, and you want to do it, and you work towards it. So that's our intro. How's it going, Veritax? Daughter working on a research paper has to create a pledge sheet. Okay. Irony, it includes plagiarism. The pledge sheet has bottom of the page says copy ring XXX not to be reproduced, but her paper has have this on a page. That's irony. Oof. Well, it's that public school. Thad said World War One literature for me, Sean McKean, about to start Christopher Clark. Okay. World War One is the war no one expected. Everybody should have, though. Gosh, all the signs were there, but everybody thought that everybody. I don't know. While World War II was a very different was a war unlike any other before that, so was World War One. Very different in that technology had surpassed the tactics prior to the war, really. And then World War II, we developed technology that surpassed the tactics, and then it's into the Cold War we went. Let me know how it goes for you, Thad. Appreciate it. All right, let's get into Ecclesiastes 7. Okay. Ecclesiastes 7, as I said in the description, kind of sounds like, just from the title, that we're going right back into Proverbs. It's Solomon's work. We get it. But now I'm nervous about it because we just spent all that time in Proverbs, and I was kind of trying to keep my head above water, reading it to you guys and trying to understand it. It's definitely, as much as Ecclesiastes is humbling, trying to describe Proverbs to people is humbling too, because I'm like, man, I'm not smart enough for this. Like, again, I've said this, some of it's obvious, right? Take correction, this kind of other, don't think too much of yourself. There's lots of good proverbs that are really just, you can rattle them off the top of your head, and they stick with you. And many of these proverbs, as we know, are part of modern society and their understanding of it these days. But there are some where I'm like, I think I get it, maybe. And then one of you guys will come in and say, well, I think it means that. I'm like, well, that makes more sense. And what in the world am I doing up here trying to talk about Proverbs? So then I come to open up Ecclesiastes 7, and it says wisdom and folly contrasted. I'm like, oh no, that was like 7 chapters of Proverbs. So let's go and look, same author. But let's get into it, because so far, Ecclesiastes, if any of y'all who've read it through before, like me, you'll love it. You love it. So let's get into it. Wisdom and folly contrasted. A good name is better than precious perfume, and the day of one's death better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that day of death is the end of every man, and the living will take it to heart and solemnly ponder its meaning. Sorrow is better than laughter. For when a face is sad, deep in thought, the heart may be happy, because it is growing in wisdom. The heart of the wise learns when it is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is senseless in the house of pleasure. It is better to listen to the wait, hold on. I'm going to stop this right now, because we are kind of going into a proverb-like cadence. All right. So let's start with the first section. A good name is better than precious perfume, and the day of one's death better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go into the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that day of death is the end of every man, and the living will take it to heart and solemnly ponder its meaning. Sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, deep in thought, the heart may be happy because it is growing in wisdom. Okay, let's stop. Just parse that part out. Okay. Good name better than precious perfume, right? Again, some of these things are obvious and worth, reminding yourself, right? Your name, your reputation, how you're considered, and not from you know, people need to hear your name and think of, oh, that guy's doing well for himself. No, they need to think of your name and that's a person that is known for doing the right thing. That is a person who is known for his faith in God and his his work for his fellow man and his work to grow the body of Christ, right, or the body of Christianity. Now, in this case, that's for us today. Now, back then, it would have been, the Hebrew, the Israelite version of that. The day of one's death better than the day of one's birth. The way we understand it, yeah, you're born into a life of worldliness, and there are good things and bad things. But when you die, you're heading off to heaven. If you are saved, you are going to a place that is wonderful, and you don't have the um, worry of balancing the good and the bad. You've got it's a paradise that Christ is preparing for us. So we should be looking forward to it. Better to go into the house of mourning than go into the house of feasting, for that day is the end of every man, and the living will take to heart and solemnly ponder its meaning. Yeah. In many ways. So I can take this a couple of ways. First way is kind of tying into what we were talking about just now. You're celebrating somebody who has reached their end and on to the next part of their life, right? Of their existence. They're going to that place that Christ has prepared for them. It should be celebrated. But at the same time, also a time for you to take stock in what your state of mind is right now. Where is your life at? Are you where you need to be? Are you working towards being where you need to be? Have you given up? It's a reminder that our time here is limited and relatively short. Time to ponder the meaning, as Solomon eloquently puts it. Sorrow is better than laughter for when that's hard for me. For when a face is sad, deep in thought, the heart may be happy because it is growing in wisdom. Now, I'm a person who loves to laugh. I enjoy having a good time. A lot of it, a lot of my life is spent enjoying what other people have to say that's funny. But I also think he's right here. There's a lot of times when I'm upset. There was just talking about me watching this documentary. There's sorrow in it for me. But I'm not goofing off. I'm thinking about things with levity. I'm taking things seriously. Maybe I come out of that ponderance a little bit smarter. Maybe some better off. The heart of the wise learns when it is in the house of mourning, But the heart of fools is senseless in the house of pleasure. Are we talking about a horror house here? A house of pleasure? Maybe I don't know if Gateway was ready to put footnotes on that to clarify. What is what does our ESV friend say? The house of mirth. It's very different from house of pleasure as we understand it. Um, I think this is just a if you take it as a path or as a house of mirth, enjoyment, feasting, which is kind of what we're seeing in the previous verse, it ties in very well and very tidily. Sorrow is better, or not the previous verse, the verse before that. The heart of the wise learns that when the house in mourning, you're growing in wisdom. You're feeling that sorrow. You're pondering its meaning. Right? That's the same regardless of what you think the second part of the verse says. Second part of the verse, heart of fools is senseless in the house of pleasure. If it's enjoyment, feasting, and just out there having a good time, you're at the tavern, you're at a bar, whatever, wherever you're at, hanging out. You're not there to get smarter. You're there to relax and unwind. Act foolish. No, I've done it. And if you take it from a pleasures of the flesh standpoint, house of ill repute. Now, we all know why that's senseless and foolish. Back to Thad. Thad said he's talking. But we were talking about World War I earlier. No, all the signs were that the nations managed to survive a lot of crisis of war and managed to resolve it. Yeah, but there was a lot of brinksmanship there, and it was constantly posturing and coming and pulling back and pulling and eventually something was going to happen, and all hell was going to break loose. And everybody was convinced. Everybody was stockpiling arms. Everybody was showing off their military prowess. Everybody was talking about how great their own country was and how much better it was than everyone else's. It's a lot of pride. That's a lot of the wrong mentality to have when you continue to get closer and closer to violent or situations where it can turn violent quickly. Where were we at? I should have read 5 and 6 together so we said, better listen. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We will read 5 and 6 together. For it is better to listen to rebuke of the wise man and pursue wisdom than for the one to listen to the song of fools and pursue stupidity. For like the crackling of burning thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool, and this too is vanity. Better to listen to the rebuke of the wise man and pursue wisdom than for one to listen to the song of fools. Look, like you said, this is good. This is good meat. It's very similar to a lot of Proverbs. It's better for you to be criticized and take that criticism. If it's coming from a wise man, that you are going to take that criticism to heart, consider it, and implement it into your life and become a better person for it than for you to be singing, drinking songs in the tavern and doing dumb stuff. And as we know in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything. But there should be more time in your life set aside for bettering yourself than for acting like a fool. For like the crackling of burning thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This too is vanity. I don't know what that means. The crackling of burning thorn bushes under a pot. I don't know what that means. Where's Nirnaeth? Thad, Veritax, y'all got any thoughts here? It's tying in, so or let's go see ESV. As the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of fools, the sauce is vanity. There is a footnote in this, though. Let's see the footnote. Oh, vapor. Oh, that's not helpful. For oppression makes a wise man foolish, and a bribe corrupts the good judgment of the heart. Is it being oppressed that we're talking about? Oppression making a wise man foolish, or oppressing other? Bribe corrupts the good judgment of the heart. That we know. And again, that's very relatable with our current political climate over the last however many decades. We have seen officials bribed and in the pocket of name your lobbying group, whether it's pharmaceutical companies or different organizations surrounding firearms, pro firearms, anti firearms, Second Amendment good, Second Amendment bad. But trust us, bro, we like the Second Amendment too. It's just not for this. It leads me to believe 7 is talking about oppressing others. Makes a smart person do dumb things and make dumb decisions. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Patience of spirit is better than haughtiness of spirit and pride. Well, we talked about ends better than beginnings, right? Not to say you shouldn't enjoy the journey. You shouldn't enjoy the situation, depending on what it is. Some situations you're glad that they're over. Patience of spirit is better than haughtiness of spirit. Patience is better than pride. Pretty cut and dry there. Do not be eager in your heart to be angry, for anger dwells in the heart of fools. I hate getting angry. I hate how easy it is for me to get angry. And I feel like this. Do not be eager in your heart to be angry. I don't want to be, but I do feel foolish when I am. Do not say, why were the Do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. So is it anger or haughtiness of spirit? Do we feel like the old days were better? This is a big one. I feel attacked because I say this. And not only that, I hear other people saying it. A lot of other people are saying it. Or maybe we shouldn't ask. We should already know. Don't ask why. But again, this is one of those parts where Solomon goes over my head on it. At least said the first part. Why were they if it is not from wisdom that you ask this? Because I feel like he's being rhetorical here. Wisdom along with an inheritance is good and an excellent advantage for those who see the sun. For wisdom is a protection, even as money is a protection. But the excellent advantage of knowledge is that wisdom shields and preserves the lives of its possessors. Wisdom along with an inheritance is good from an excellent advantage for those. Yeah. Yeah. Money being rich does not make you evil. Money is supposed to be viewed as a tool. It's how you act, how you treat money. Is it your goal? Is it the end? Is it your ends for that? Do you think it's going to solve your problems? Or can you use it? Use it to provide for your family? Use it to be charitable? Use it to do kind of what Solomon tells you throughout here. Sometimes it's good to take this thing that you have earned and use it and trade it for uh, vacation, a car that you enjoy. There's moderation to be had there. For wisdom is a protection, even as money is a protection. So now it's not just that you've got money, you've got the tool, but you've got the wisdom to understand and the wisdom to use it. This is one I really need to uh, take to heart and teach my kids, especially if they will be inheriting money. It needs to not just be money, it needs to be wisdom. But the excellent advantage of knowledge is that wisdom shields and preserves the lives of its possessors. Yeah. Keep you from making mistakes, keep you from being taken advantage of, keep you from putting yourself in a bad situation. Save your life. 13, consider the work of God. Who can make straight what he has bent? Nobody but God. That is definitely a rhetorical question. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. But in the day of adversity, consider that God has made the one as well as the other, so that man will not find out anything that will be after him. This is a reminder. This is a very this is a good verse to respond to people struggling with the Reddit conundrum of if God real, why bad thing? There's a time for everything. And some evil is man-made. Mankind has a tendency to corrupt any institution we build. We make bad decisions. We fall into sin. We lose our faith. But not all things that are deadly come from things that mankind has done. Acts of God, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, chance, as some people might think of it, in the more mundane daily things. You can't fix it. You can't undo it. You can't fight it. You can't make straight what he has bent. And so when you are confronted with this, just remember those times that were bad were made by God just as much as the days that were good. And like God tells us in Job, it's not our it's not our place to know uh, why bad things happen sometimes, why tragedy strikes. And that ties us back up at the beginning. Better to go to the house of mourning. Life is short. Life will have good points and bad times, good seasons and bad. We're going through it for a reason. If for whatever reason, even if the reason is just that God wills it to be so, but we know that God is more complex. So we need to have faith in him that we might not understand why. It's beyond our reckoning. But eventually there'll be an end and we'll move on to something better. It's been promised to us. And unlike men, God always keeps his promises. And it might not be in a way that we can comprehend. But if he says it's better, he says it's a paradise, you can take that to the bank that it's going to be something you're going to enjoy. 15. All right, now we're going to get back into the pros. I have seen everything during my fleeting days of futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in spite of his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who lives a long life in spite of his wickedness. Do not be excessively righteous like those given to self-conceit, and do not be overly wise or pretentious. Why should you bring yourself to ruin? Do not be excessively or willfully wicked. Do not be a fool. Why should you die before your time? Is it good that you take hold of one thing, righteousness, and also not let go of the other, wisdom? For the one who fears and worships God with awe-filled reverence will come forth with both of them. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people. It doesn't justify one over the other. If evil man lives a long life, it doesn't mean that it was because he was evil, that he was being rewarded for his evil. It doesn't mean what he was doing was right. And we can't judge a person by stuff like that. It is good that you take hold of one thing, righteousness, and also not let go of the other, wisdom. For the one who fears and worships God with all filled reverence will come forth with both of them. That's the important part. Whether it is death that comes soon or in a long time, the focus is the righteousness, the God-fearing, loving, obedient nature that we should be cultivating in ourselves and praying to God to help us. That's the important part of what Solomon's driving at here, I think. And use that prudence and wisdom and knowledge that you gain as you get older and wiser, and hopefully wiser, and apply that. Wisdom strengthens the wise man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Indeed, there's not a righteous man on earth who always does good and who never sins. Also, do not take seriously everything that is said, so that you will not hear your servant cursing you. For you also know that you too have cursed others many times. I have tested all this with wisdom. I said, I will be wise independently of God, but true wisdom was far from me. All right, we're going to go back because that's a very important part. So let's go through 19 through 21. Wisdom strengthens the wise man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Well, that's certainly true if you consider Washington, D.C., the city. Um, it does. I mean, this is a reiteration of what he says up here, where he's talking about how wisdom and knowledge is a shield that preserves the lives of its possessors. It makes you better, makes you more equipped and formidable. And not just for you, for people around you. Indeed, there's not a righteous man on earth who always does good and never sins. And talking about taking seriously everything that was said, so that you will not hear your servant cursing you, for you know that you too have cursed others many times. This is a very Jesus-like part of Ecclesiastes, right? Very similar to the he who is without sin cast the first stone. But before that, the understanding of, hey, you're not perfect. Don't pretend you're going to be perfect. Don't expect that of the people around you either. You're expecting grace. You're expecting forgiveness from God. You should be giving grace to yourself as well. You need to be giving it to other people. You've been there with them. Maybe your sins aren't the exact same as their sins, but you've been in the situation where you have been sinning. Maybe take that rebuke and that criticism. What's going on, Jenny? We're still here. We still got a couple more verses left. I have tested all this with wisdom. I said, I will be wise independently of God, but true wisdom was far from me. Isn't it right? This is the admission of Solomon right here. I was given, here's your explanation. Well, if he was so smart, why did he screw up at the end of his life if he was given this wisdom? Solomon, wise though he was, still struggled with pride and thought that he could be wise beyond what God has gifted him with. And what did he do? I had an interaction with a guy on Twitter. I invited him to the show, or invited him to the stream to view it. And I thought he said something that I thought was pretty poignant. I'm going to try to look at it here. He was talking about he's Orthodox, and he was criticizing Protestants. But I think what he said was a truism of just less so a doctrine thing between Protestants or Catholics or Orthodox, but more of towards the individual who is maybe going to church or join the church for kind of the wrong reasons, or study. Maybe that's not fair. Studying the Bible maybe with the wrong intent, right? You can't make scripture say what you want it to say. You have to be, you have to approach it with humility. You can't just go, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. You have to be willing to say it, to look at it objectively and go, is what is being described here what I'm doing? And what is supposed to capitulate first? Always us. We read something and we know deep down that it doesn't align with our opinions. You need to change your opinion. And Solomon here has that is kind of admitting that part at the end of his life, he kind of gets into that mindset, right? I'm wise, I'm king, I'm anointed by God. I've been given wisdom from God. This ridiculous blessing. It's ridiculously um awesome blessing from him. So now I'm smart. So now I can do what I want. So now I'm going to follow uh the wrong head, so to speak, and marry all these women and have all these women on the side. And I'm going to let them tempt me into doing awful things, things that God that I should know better than to do. But I'm going to justify it to myself because I'm smart. I'm the wisest person ever. True wisdom was far from me, he says. He knows this at the end. Whatever has been is far off, deeply remote, and exceedingly mysterious. Who can discover it? For it is beyond the grasp of man. I turned around and directed my heart to know, to investigate, and to seek skillful and godly wisdom and the reason for things, and to know that wickedness is folly, and that foolishness is madness, leading to stupidity and recklessness. And I discovered that all the irrational sins, none has been so destructive and beguiling one away from God as immoral women. For more bitter than death is the woman whose heart is composed of snares and nets, and whose hands are chains. Whoever pleases God will escape from her, but the sinner will be taken captive by her evil. I got in an argument years ago, and I've told you guys about it. It's a humbling perspective of mine for me. My argument was over, when me and my wife got married, I was Christian, but she was not. Um, she'd been to church, she had gotten baptized, but she'd kind of left that behind. Just um, one of those stories of, you know, you go to college and you're faced with all these different opinions and everything, and then you know we were dating, and I didn't, I wasn't gonna. And part, I guess maybe part of my saving grace here was God giving me the stubbornness to or loyalty to Him. I don't know. I don't know. I won't say it's a virtue, but in this case, it served me well because it's just like, look, you don't, but I do, and I always will have faith in God and follow Him and believe in Jesus Christ. And we're going to get married in a church. We're going to make those vows to God. And we're going to have a long, meaningful marriage. And we're going to have kids and etc. And so the whole Paul talking about being unequally yoked all stuck at me because it wasn't something I did or I listened to. Me and my wife were unequally yoked when we got married because I was a believer and she was not. But because of that union, um, because of the example I guess I gave to her, which is what she says is what led her back, I guess, and the birth of our first child, which I think is another major contributing factor. Creating life and seeing it in front of you is, you know, significant emotional event. Um, and she came back, and she is saved because of that act. And so I felt the desire to vigorously defend that. And at the same time, I had to come back and say, well, interestingly enough, because we're talking about Solomon, you know, I didn't do the right thing, but God has a great habit of taking bad situations, especially with the faithful, and allowing us to do good with those bad decisions. David's decision with Bathsheba was evil, and there were punishment, and there were consequences for his indiscretion and what he did, and he did evil and sin. It's a big no-no. What came out of that whole entanglement? But what did he do? He repented. He was penitent, humble. He married Bathsheba. He had another child with her, and that child was Solomon, the man writing Ecclesiastes right here, talking about his own moments of weakness, and warning us of what we do, because his fall was very similar to David's fall that I just described. And as Hans Feeney poignantly said, it's like driving down the road with your with your steering wheel, with your feet on the steering wheel. You might not have an accident, but it's not smart to do it. And you're begging for something bad to happen, because there are many stories out there of believers, many anecdotes. I'm sure you all might have them, of believers who have um, entered relationships with unbelievers and fallen away as a result. And I'm sure preachers and those very connected in their church, you guys see that or notice it more, because you know when somebody stops showing up and isn't going somewhere else. That's happened to Solomon. So if you think it can't happen to you, here's your point of humility. If you think it can't happen to you, it can. It did happen to two of the brightest stars in God's kingdom, King David and King Solomon. Now, the Bathsheba's thing was all on him and his own lust. That wasn't, but I was talking about later on in his life, he did make some mistakes in that aspect. Lust, what he's saying is lust and will lead you down a destructive path. You need to be mindful of that. It will make you compromise your values so fast if you don't respect it. Whoever pleases God will escape from her, but the sinner will be taken captive by her evil. All right. Behold, I have discovered this, says the preacher. while adding one thing to another to find an explanation, which I am still seeking, but have not found. I have found one man among 1,000 who pleases God, but I have not found such a woman among all these 1,000 in my harem. Well, you know, where were you getting the ladies from, Solomon? Behold, I have found only this as a reason. God made man upright and uncorrupted, but they, both men and women, have sought out many devices for evil. Solomon speaking with an anecdote here. Well, most of Ecclesiastes is a mix of wisdom and anecdotes, but I have not found such a woman among all these 1,000 in my harem. Looked along the women who were leading him to sin are the women he goes, I didn't find any of them were righteous. No, I didn't find any of them pleased God. They're out there. There's biblical accounts of them. But it's all this is steeped in lust. God made man upright and uncorrupted, but they, both men and women, have sought out many devices for evil. We just can't help ourselves, can we? We're weak, prone to sin, stupid, acting foolish. Disappointing. And again, despite all of this, Christ still thought enough of us to be crucified. Pretty impressive. Pretty humbling for us. Pretty impressive amount of grace. Since he knows what each and every one of us has been up to. Yeah. I'm going to go repent now. Yeah, that's going to wrap it up. That'll wrap it up for chapter 7. And we just keep tooling right along. All right, so Jenny, glad you got to catch the last 15, 20 minutes of the show. Always good to see you here. Glad you were here yesterday. Got to see my son stream. Thad, Veritax. That's the chat tonight, guys. That's the chat. February has been quiet. It's been quiet as far as the amount of folks in here. But again, quality. The quality of the chat has been great. The witch lady hasn't been back in the chat either. Kind of was hoping she was going to stick around. But you guys have stuck around. You guys and others. And I appreciate that. Y'all do a great job. I appreciate y'all. And very good stream, by the way, yesterday. Thank you. I'll pass that along. You guys are amazing. To everybody who is listening and can't or won't be part of the chat, that's fine. I just want you to know, open invitation, highly encouraged to be part. I want to hear from you, but I get it. I'm just glad that you've found a stream that you can come back to and that you're getting something out of it. Meaning I'm able to present to you the scripture in a way that isn't completely embarrassing for myself. That I'm doing some good, right? And for everybody who is catching this stream on replay, thank you for watching. I'm sorry I missed you. I hope to catch you live sometime soon. Everybody have a good night and God bless.